So when people are given comfort and security, do they become better humans or weaker ones?
Yeah, I think the algorithm gives you a lot of strong opinions on things without much depth or
What do you
knowledge.
think? Or how does one get from just having too much information to being knowledgeable in anything?
Perhaps for the Gen Z person constantly scrolling on TikTok,
Yeah.
that algorithm is
Yeah.
exercising an incredible amount of power over the formation of their political opinions, their interests, and a bunch of other factors.
Yeah. Do you think people love you for who you are or
Yeah.
for the value they can draw from you?
I'm saying this as a warning and as a prophecy. When you look to the West from Kenya, know that if you adopt our technologies and our ideas, then you're going to be heading down the same path.
You'll find many men now can say yes to a rich woman who,
Yeah, I
would,
think many would.
who would wear the pants.
That's right. We live in a world where fear, things that might not even particularly affect us, we think will affect us. You know,
If
well,
you put 5 random girls and one of them goes to them and tells them that I have a boyfriend, here's the first question they would ask her. What does he do?
is I think power and freedom also go hand in hand.
You
And
find that many people discover masculinity way late in life.
Oh, of
in
course.
campus,
Of course.
and all that.
Yeah.
And that has become a very big problem.
I mean, I'm super impressed with this country and its people, and excited to kind of see, where it goes. Who knows what we're moving towards, but history tells me that it's something better.
Welcome to Beyond the Pulpit podcast with your host, Silas Otieno. I'm very happy to be here. And this is the podcast where we say, Beyond the Pulpit, where faith meets real life. And today I have a guest, a friend. His name is Shay from Australia. Karibu sana. That's what we say in Kenya.
Yeah.
It means welcome. Karibu sana, Shay.
Thank you. It's so
Yeah.
nice to be here, and so nice to meet you recently through a mutual friend. And
Yes.
we obviously have a great rapport, so very happy to sit down and have a conversation with you.
Yeah, we've met with Shay through Tessa. I know you all know Tessa, and we've just found that we have common interest in so many things.
Yeah.
Just from the conversation that we've had,
Absolutely.
and I'm really excited to see that a Kenyan can share or can have we can have a platform where we have
Yeah.
conversation one with another.
Yeah.
On just the whole world the way it is.
And it's so nice to be in a foreign culture and a foreign country where you guys are so open and inviting to have these conversations. So I appreciate it too.
Yeah, by the way, have you
Yeah.
found our culture so inviting?
Oh, so incredibly inviting, and beyond what I expected. We're not particularly shown specific things of Kenya broadly in Australia. I mean, obviously you can kind of find out for yourself. It's not something in our cultural narrative of what's happening in Kenya. I mean, we know safaris, we know, certain things. We know you're a British colony. Unfortunately, we know of the poverty and other things, but I think the perception of what is presented to us of, I guess, Africa broadly, versus now being here on the ground and meeting the people and how open and friendly they are, the incredible disparity between extreme wealth and poverty. I think we're not really made aware of the extreme wealth side as much.
Okay.
It's what's more reflected to us is, this is the culture from which all humanity originated, probably here in Kenya, in the Rift Valley somewhere.
Okay.
But obviously it's still a land of much suffering, and I think and beauty.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the narrative for us is a continent of beauty and suffering, So
Okay.
coming here and seeing that it's so much more than that, and that, and
Okay.
everything in between has been a really interesting experience.
By the way, I work with Americans, and there are some who come here.
Yeah, what's their perception?
There are some who get surprised
Okay.
that we have highways.
Oh, really? No, I mean, I certainly... Look, I knew, having some background in politics, I knew, the United Nations African headquarters is here. So I appreciated that Nairobi would be and is a developed city,
Yeah.
but
Actually-
the people have been the great surprise to me. The openness, the friendliness, the high intelligence, really, they can debate with the best of the world about what's going on, human nature, politics, everything. So it's a really cool culture to be invited into temporarily.
And actually, I was with a friend of mine. There were a couple from America. And so we went to Village Market Mall.
I've been there.
Oh, you've been there.
Oh, better than many malls in Australia.
Yeah. So when we were there, the lady took a video and then took a photo of the place where we were in, then sent it to her grandmother.
Oh yeah.
She was surprised that we have malls.
Yeah.
That and I want to understand whether this is correct. Is that the picture you are shown of Africa, or what picture do you get generally?
Look, I think Australia is a very altruistic culture. In fact, I think it's one of the highest countries in the world that gifts voluntarily, a high percentage of their income or a significant percentage of their income to different charities around the world. So I think some of these charity groups, when they show us what's happening in Kenya or other parts of Africa, they're trying to show us the poverty, not to necessarily distort the picture, but to engage our empathy and to engage our generosity. So I think perhaps if they did show the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and, these amazing malls and high-rise buildings, perhaps people might think, hey, maybe they're doing okay over there. Maybe they don't need our generosity and support as much. So I do think we do get a distorted picture.
Yeah.
But perhaps that doesn't come from a place of malice. It comes from a place of, wanting to help those in need. And as you know, despite the riches, there are still millions of Kenyans in need of, upliftment.
Actually, there's a huge gap between the rich and the poor in Kenya.
I've never been to and I've traveled the world. I've never seen a place with such disparity.
It is.
From going to villages which really, should have been the same hundreds of years ago. Mud huts, no electricity. With the exception of the church and the schools and other bigger pieces of infrastructure, and then you see the high level of wealth in these cities. And I've never seen a place of such disparity.
The rich are very rich, and the poor are extremely poor. And I'm also in that field where I take care of some young people who are in poverty through education and all that. And I can tell you the gap is too big.
And in terms of like the rich redistributing to the poor, is that a cultural phenomenon you see here, or are the poor more helped by the government? And you work for an NGO, right? So non-government organizations from other countries, or who would you say in Kenyan society are really trying to uplift the poor the most?
I don't think the rich are doing it.
Okay.
The rich are not doing it. Because if the rich, if you check statistically the difference, if the rich were to really support the poor, then we wouldn't have that much poverty that we have here.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to distribution of resources and wealth, it is so individualistic that we have families that own a lot, even in terms of land in the country. We have some families that almost own a quarter or a half of the country in terms of land, and others don't have any piece of land. So our culture is very individualistic.
Yeah.
We get a lot of foreign aid. Yes, we have some corporations that are coming up that are doing CSR, community, corporate social responsibility, and part of that is helping the poor. So some companies are, and actually it is required by law. If I'm not wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. It is required by law that every company or corporation be involved in a CSR.
Okay.
And a huge chunk of that CSR is helping the poor communities, but it is very individualistic.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's the same throughout all cultures and throughout history that the rich are not particularly eager to help the poor.
Exactly.
It sometimes happens incidentally through capitalism itself, through job creation. But often it's, in our country, we were a British colony too, and we're an outgrowth of that.
Yeah.
And, the rich really exploited the lower class. Originally, obviously we have the Indigenous Australians, which are this amazing, I think the world's longest continuous civilization, unbroken by external influences. And then, of course, we've got those early waves of British colonialism. But actually, it was more the British convicts that they were sending. So the low of the low in terms of their own perception of their own society.
Yeah.
Now, there is a theory that they sent these people because they were trying to create a colony in Australia. Okay. And in the end, they were arresting people for very, small infractions, such as stealing a loaf of bread. But these, people came to Australia and they themselves saw that the rich were not helping them and that they had to kind of forge their own country. But also, the rise of the union movement in Australia has been a big source of wealth redistribution and taking money from capital and redistributing it to those lower levels. And that's what's really made us probably one of the biggest countries with a powerful middle class. There isn't really extreme poverty in Australia, thanks to the union movement and socially progressive governments that have ensured certain working conditions. The 8-hour workday, the weekend, but also certain minimum wage provisions, which are important.
For us, you're on your own.
Yeah, really. So there's
no.
Labour unions are not strong here. There's no minimum wage.
There is minimum wage, but its enforceability is very difficult. Because guys get just casual employment, which is not necessarily employment. There is no contract so much, unless you're going to a big organization.
Okay.
And so if you are born in a poor family in Kenya, you're on your own. Nobody's coming to help you.
No.
Like I grew up in the ghetto myself, and
oh wow,
it's a difficult life.
Yeah. No, and I've seen that here. Like I see talented, intelligent people just struggling to get into the job market, struggling to be recognised, In Australia, we've got an ageing population. So actually, we bring in a lot of people to fill the job market, and we have a social safety net system. So there's minimum welfare provisions. So if you're out of work, the government does give you basic subsistence or rent support. So
yes,
I can definitely tell that, we're certainly blessed in terms of that infrastructure. But in terms of the people, Kenyans are just amazing, and I'm sure you're growing towards that direction as well.
Yeah. So it's very interesting when we are having this conversation and just noticing the differences that we have both in our cultures, which is something very interesting. But I have some 5 things I want us to talk about.
Let's go.
And I have my notes here, and you've listened to some of our clips on TikTok, on social media.
Yeah, you're strongly opinionated. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Mostly on topics such as power.
Yep.
Relationships, and we'll talk about those things. But the first thing I want us to talk about is where do you really think power sits today? Does it sit in the government, in corporations, in the media, or in culture? Where do you think power really is in the 21st century?
I mean, first off, I think power sits within ourselves. I think we have autonomy. We're born with autonomy, and that's ultimately where the majority of power rests. Perhaps your question is more relating to which of those external bodies exercises the most power over us.
Exactly.
And in that case, I think it's very contextual. Perhaps for the Gen Z person constantly scrolling on TikTok, that algorithm is exercising an incredible amount of power over the formation of their political opinions, their interests, and a bunch of other factors. I think to the person in the streets protesting the government, according to them, is exercising power disproportionately or not, or to the worker it could be the boss that refuses to give them a pay rise and therefore refuses to allow them to rise socially upwards. So I think it would contextually depend. But what I do think is I think power and freedom also go hand in hand, and I think in our society the fact that there are different competing power groups, the government, the media, corporations, that's a fantastic thing, because as they compete, hopefully in a non-violent way, that gives us space to have freedom. Because if the government had all the power, or the corporations had all the power, or the media had all the power, and you can't question government laws, or you can't question media narratives, or you can't protest against corporate pay conditions, we'd all be powerless. So in that sense, I think each in a capitalist system has different portions of power. And it's the fact that not one of them has a monopoly on power, which ultimately grants us our freedom.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And actually, you've mentioned algorithm. Now, I usually say that when I'm scrolling on phone and I am interested in the 48 laws of power, I get videos that only talk about what interests me. Do you think this is a good thing, or is it going to... what is the effect of this? When you just see what you are interested in.
I think the algorithm gives you a lot of strong opinions on things without much depth or knowledge behind them. You know, so it's a 15-second clip, and all of a sudden you walk out with a strong opinion based on seeing a 15-second reel. Oh yeah, men are like this, women are like this. This politician, that politician. You know, so I think it doesn't add depth or nuance, and that's the problem with culture wars in general. You know, the algorithm wants us to have a strong opinion on something. You know,
that's what.
You know, cat videos are great. No dog videos are great. This Trump is evil. No, Trump is a savior.
Yeah.
You know, the algorithm doesn't give us much nuanced content. So in that sense, I think the algorithm is polarizing, and it also doesn't encourage much further exploration.
So does it make us people who have a lot of knowledge but very little depth in whatever we have? We can have diverse knowledge, or
I would say a lot of information.
A lot of information.
You know, but I wouldn't even say knowledge, because knowledge presumes like understanding the genesis, you know, of how that came to be.
Okay.
You know, if the algorithm tells you that Trump is a dictator, do you all of a sudden know what a dictator is? Do you understand the history of the rise of, you know, our political systems and what the technical criteria for a dictator are, as opposed to Trump, who was democratically elected despite us having very valid disagreements with many of his policy positions. So I think it creates these strong opinions in people, but without them actually having the knowledge or understanding the history of these ideas that it's spitting out at them, I don't think our society is particularly better off.
Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? Or what would you say about how it's shaping us?
I suppose it's a necessary thing. You know, it's a necessary thing. I mean, I think when we look at history, when we look at the world today, you know, I think for 9 out of 10 categories, it is better than it has ever been at any previous point in history.
Okay, why so?
Well, I mean, humans are more free than ever.
Yeah.
Humans are more interconnected than ever. Humans potentially, if we, you know, get off the algorithm and pick up a book, we're more educated than ever. Okay. You know, there's more common languages and ways to meet and travel and see people. So we're living at the greatest time in human history. Now, that's on the back of a pretty awful history where a lot of terrible things have led to this moment.
Yeah.
So in terms of social media and the algorithm, I think, look, it's certainly not the best manifestation of it as it currently is, but that's part of the technological revolution, which will hopefully lead towards a better tomorrow. So we have to kind of accept and reform it, as opposed to be total Luddites and say it shouldn't exist. Now, fair enough that we withdraw it from our own lives and move off to the country, live in a forest and have nothing but a fireplace and a bookshelf, but we shouldn't demand that society itself puts down the phone, switches off the algorithm. You know, this is just part of human freedom and human expression, and who knows what we're moving towards, but history tells me that it's something better.
Something better. And you've talked about knowledge as someone having the understanding. Mm-hmm. So how does one get from, we just still on the topic on algorithm, how does one get from just having too much information to being knowledgeable in anything?
So how does one go from too much information to being knowledgeable to anything?
Because you've said that what algorithm does to us, it gives us too much information.
Well,
but yet we don't have the understanding of it.
Right.
Like it just shapes, it gives us strong opinions.
Well, I think that's where like personal intention really matters here, because the thing about the algorithm is it spits out stuff to us. Like you, for example, might have Googled once Robert Greene's The Law of Powers.
Yes.
But now, because you viewed that clip, the algorithm is reinforcing that to you, and all of a sudden you may, not through your own self-pursuit, but through the algorithm bombarding you, develop an interest in Robert Greene and his other works. Okay. I think what's really important is to step away from the algorithm, decide what we value, what we are genuinely curious about, what truths we want to uncover, and then go down that path. But that path will often be through our own experience, through reading, through documentaries, you know, through other forms of, I guess, deeper, more expansive knowledge.
Yeah. And talking about the media, how do you think we are at a better place with YouTube and many sources of media rather than the mainstream media eras? Do you think we are better off, or how do you see things?
Yes.
With regards to the media?
Overall, absolutely. I think we're better off. I don't think we're more united. I think there's more division as a result. but I think we're better off because, fundamentally voices that notionally don't have positions of power in society can speak on a platform like this, speak our very personal truth.
Yeah.
And now there's the algorithms and there's the infrastructure to let that go beyond. And then people might go, look, I don't know who those guys are, but I actually agree with their opinions more than what I read in the newspaper or what's on the nightly news. So I think it really advances the free expression of humans, and I think that's our birthright. I'm a big free speech advocate. So in that sense, I love the freedom of the modern media landscape. I don't necessarily love how it's being used or for what purposes, but that's more a personal preference.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
it has made more people who would otherwise not have a voice to have a voice.
Yeah, but it's also, there's less gatekeepers. Like, we can have more,
Yes.
we can question official narratives more than ever. Back in the day, these news channels, these newspapers, they were regulated by government, right? So
Yeah.
government power was regulating the media.
Yes.
So effectively, if you wanted to have a voice, these media institutions might not have questioned the government beyond what is socially permitted in that culture.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can come up with wild theories against the government or media or corporations because, technology allows that. And yes, there's many crazy theories out there. And yes, people jump onto them because they have a real lack of understanding of history. Sometimes something sounds wild and you just want to believe it because it's so, sensational.
Yeah.
But I do think it's good that we live in an environment where people can speak freely and share their ideas, whether they're truthful or not.
What's amazing is people like me would never have made it to mainstream media.
Yeah.
By the way, when
Because there's gatekeepers, or I mean, you're clearly charismatic and educated, so why?
yes, because there's gatekeepers, and how our Kenyan media was structured, you wouldn't really get there. Because I have listened to podcasts from our celebrity musicians who are starting out when mainstream media was a thing.
Yeah.
And some of them were complaining a lot about the gatekeepers. Like I remember there is a testimony by one musician in Kenya who says that he went to the media houses and literally gave them CDs of his music, but it was never played until one time somebody somewhere played it, and then this guy in the mainstream media had it, and then that's when he started being played.
Right.
And he's a pretty cool musician in Kenya and pretty influential.
Well, it's interesting because technology has effectively removed the gatekeepers in media.
Yes.
So now it's a space of radical freedom.
Yeah.
Where gatekeepers still exist, however, is in politics and in political systems around the world.
Okay.
There is such a disconnect in every country I've been to between people who have strong political opinions, but if you ask them, well, why don't you join the political system and rise up through it and have a say, there's either zero knowledge of even how to begin that process,
Yes.
or there's a sense that actually that process has so many gatekeepers at every level that unless I, follow orders, I'll never rise to the top in that sphere. So I wonder when politics itself will be open up, and around the world, and where there's more access to people of different persuasions.
And it's funny that there's a lot of talk on democracy and democracy this, democracy that, but getting into that scene is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, for example, here in Kenya, you need a lot of money to even get a small member of county assembly seat.
Yeah.
Without the money, you're cut off. So the political scene or the political arena, even in a country like Kenya, is a preserve for some of the elite. Just a few people from who are like me, just a few ordinary people, very few, and I can argue not less than 5%.
Yeah.
But the rest of those guys have to be somewhere where they are connected, have a bit of money for you to be able to even participate in politics.
Yeah.
So some of our young people, most of our young people are locked out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're locked out due to their lack of knowledge of how to access the system, or they're genuinely locked out. Like, there's genuinely no way that if you said, okay, I want to get on the ballot at the next government elections, that would be impossible for you, or...
The requirements themselves
requirements.
lock us out.
Okay.
Kenya is 70% youthful. With an average income that is way below your minimum requirement to even enter.
Yes, okay. So
because our politics is highly finances speak a lot
Yeah.
in our political scenes. Like
Well,
for
that's a
example,
good point, and that's a great point you make. And I should walk back then on my statement about this media landscape being free for anyone to enter,
Yeah.
because that's certainly not true in Kenya either, right? You still need certain technology and a certain financial position to be able to even record your voice and get it out there.
Yes.
So,
But with
but it's certainly more accessible than politics and other systems globally. And I'm not really speaking to Kenya because I don't understand how access to this political system works, but I'm certainly speaking for Australia and other, Western democracies.
But we have with the increase in we have a lot of Chinese phones nowadays.
Yep.
With this 70% population,
Yep.
I would argue, this is just on top of my head, that more than 50% on a smartphone.
Yeah.
So anyone can
Which
reach
means the
anyone.
Chinese probably know about what your citizens are thinking more than the Kenyan government.
I think so.
Because the Chinese are very big over here,
Yes,
right? Like
they are very
often
big.
I say, "Oh, who built that? The Chinese, the
Yes.
Chinese, the Chinese." So is it the Belt and Road Initiative? Do you know? Like what's the program they've come in under?
Like the super highway, it was built by them.
We can see the Chinese architectural influences on the top of it. Yeah.
Yes.
With those little-
So they have been very instrumental in our infrastructure. And this is not something that started very long time ago.
Yeah.
I think it's about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Is when they had a great influence. Do you know we have a small Chinatown here in Nairobi?
No, I didn't, but it makes sense because
It's not called Chinatown, but it's
Okay.
all the Chinese food and everything here in Nairobi.
It makes sense. Well, I mean, I heard a lot of Chinese companies, labor is cheaper here now than in many parts of China. So actually, they're moving their factories and warehouses to Africa itself. So it's interesting to do with power. Obviously, pre-colonial Kenya, you had the tribes and those hierarchies.
Yes.
Then you had the evil of colonialism.
Yeah.
But now, I guess you've got more like government and corporate power structures here that are governing society.
And actually, I've written...
And therefore the Chinese corporate structures influence. I know there's a lot of people of Indian descent here that seem to be in the managerial class.
Yes. They are predominantly businessmen. The Indians and the Kikuyu.
Yeah.
They are very big.
The Kikuyus are very proud of their business nous, which is nice to see.
Yes.
It seems like they're inherent capitalists.
Yes.
I
was talking about the corporations and the government. So no, the influence that the Chinese have just by bringing so many of their industries here. It benefits Africa.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of supply of labor. But the demand itself is not there right away here in Kenya. The job market, like unemployment rate in Kenya is at 60%.
I mean, it was amazing in East Asia, when that economic miracle was kind of developing in, the late 20th century. And you just saw these agrarian societies where, the parents were just farmers, subsistence kind of living. And then their children, because of those industries being brought to the country, all of a sudden were going to school, going to university, becoming coders, So in one generation, you've gone from like people who manage the land to people who literally manage the technological infrastructure of the modern world. So I think development, and Kenya's an example of that, can happen incredibly rapidly.
Okay. And initially you were talking about freedom that the media has given us and more freedom.
Yeah.
So
or technology's given us.
Technology, yes.
Yeah.
So when people are given comfort and security, do they become better humans or weaker ones?
Yeah. It's a good question, and I think it's almost a spiritual question, or certainly it's a deeper philosophical question. There isn't a universal truth to that question because it depends how you view comfort. Is it something that can I rest in comfort for a few days and therefore be inspired to go out in the world and be more impactful, or does comfort sedate us and take away our ambition? And do we even have an obligation to achieve or do certain things? I mean, we are born with freedom. What hierarchy should be imposing on us, what we should be doing with our life. So I think those questions play into it. Obviously Christians would argue that in this lifetime, our goal is to embody as many of the virtues as Christ as we can.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible struggle for people, but that's a goal. So therefore, if you're living a life of comfort and not helping the poor, not helping the needy, not doing acts of charity or other virtues, perhaps comfort is not a good thing because it's pulling you away from your obligations as a Christian.
Exactly.
But there are many other spiritual theories, many which involve thoughts of reincarnation, and perhaps someone thinks they were a warrior in a past life, or they went through certain trauma, or they went through trauma in this life. Perhaps they had a terrible abusive childhood, and really you can't say, come on, get up and go out. They just need comfort. They need a place they feel safe, a home, a TV, a couch. They need to sit back because their emotional system is so distraught from whatever they've gone through. So yeah, I think for me personally, comfort is not a good thing because I have ambitions and I want to be out in the world and achieving certain things. But I think for others, it might be a necessity, and I certainly don't want to judge the choices people make. But
you have spoken about incarnation. I would like to understand it a lot deeper.
Yeah.
What do they teach about incarnation?
Well, look, some of the early Christians believed in reincarnation. Some of the early Christians believed, and some modern Christians think there are still hints in the Bible that perhaps, reincarnation exists. I think you're the pastor, and I've never spoken at a pulpit or beyond it, so I don't want to quote the Bible, but I think there are parts, particularly in the Old Testament, where it says someone who wields the sword will die by the sword, effectively.
Yeah.
Now, for that to be taken literally, you actually would have to presume reincarnation exists, because we know that there are many people, who have killed but not been killed. Be they warlords, be they British colonizers. Now, a theory of karma and reincarnation might suggest any evil you do to another will come back to you, but not inherently in this lifetime, perhaps in a future lifetime. So I think the Buddhists and the Hindus predominantly have theories on reincarnation, multiple lives, which is linked to karma, the idea that all our actions attract a subsequent consequence and reaction.
Okay.
But also I think that theory exists in Gnostic and certain other traditions of Christianity, and I think in the West, often people believe in Christ and they believe in karma and they believe in reincarnation. Just because we have this fusion of cultures and we're less religiously dogmatic. We'll take a truth where we see it from the Bible, but we'll also take a truth where we see it from another religious text. So I think it's a really interesting fusion that's happening in our culture. Whereas here I notice when I talk to people, if I say a view that's even slightly outside the Bible's or their pastor's interpretation of Christianity, they say no. And I'm like, well, let's discuss it. And they say, well, I don't need to discuss it. Yeah. The Bible says, so perhaps there's that.
And actually, I am one of the people who speaks a lot against the modern Christianity we have, especially here in Kenya, because it has been reduced to materialism. I would argue that 70% of Kenyan Christianity is materialism. You tune into the TV and
they're asking for donations, kind of thing. Yeah,
they're asking you to give this. There are guys still using prophetic numbers.
Yeah,
like somebody goes to Malachi 3:10 and then tells you that 3:10 is a prophetic number. So send me 310 shillings.
Yeah, that's a really sad distortion of the Christ message, isn't it? And I kind of noticed that when I was doing some charity and humanitarian work in some Kenyan villages here. Yeah. I kind of noticed consistently that in these villages without much infrastructure or even electricity, perhaps there was one or two houses electrified and it was the pastor's house. Or perhaps there was one or two, so I felt like often the pastor was the richest person in the village. And I'm not sure that that's the most healthy expression of Christianity. And again, I don't want to judge it. If the pastor's inviting all the poor around for dinner, perhaps it is. But
they're not.
I didn't go deep into that, but if they're not, I've noticed that
yes,
too.
It is godliness. This is what they teach, which is anti the Bible, by the way. They teach that godliness is a means to financial gain.
Wow, do they teach that?
They teach that expressly.
Wow.
Godliness is a means.
And they teach that, obviously that's not in the Bible, so where is that instruction coming from?
Exactly.
Once you join the church, for example, and they're instructing you, or...
Yes, they do that. And you'll find in Kenya, most of the poor places, especially the slums, there is a lot of churches. That's the reason. Yeah. Have you noticed there are a lot of small churches, even in villages, in small villages?
No, I have noticed.
There's for example, I work at just 10 kilometers away from here, and there is a 300 meters stretch from the junction to my office. There are 22 churches in that 300 meter
It's sad, isn't it? Because it's almost a corruption of the message of Christ, because
Yeah.
Christ did tell us to give and be generous. So to the extent a pastor or someone leading a church is saying, give, even if you don't have much, give. There is a
Yes.
spiritual virtue to that, and other religious and spiritual traditions believe in that too. Again, the idea of karma, what you give, you receive.
Okay.
You know, so what you do for another, the charity or kindness you give to another does come back to you. So I suppose there is that logical reasoning behind churches asking for this, but perhaps they should be showing where these finances are actually going, and again having some accountability. Okay, so if I give to the church, how much of that are you giving
Yeah.
back to the community?
Yeah.
You know, because then it's a legitimate exercise.
Yeah.
But if not, then where is that money going?
And do you know what it has done?
Yeah.
The effect of that, the effect of teaching that godliness is a means
Yeah.
to financial gain. Now, nowadays, churches are, the youth are avoiding the church.
Yeah.
A lot.
Okay.
A lot. There is
Yeah.
a lot of many people. Even when I go on TikTok,
Yeah.
there is a lot of videos anti-Christianity, anti
Yeah.
the church, and it's not. That's why when I speak in this podcast or in this particular, I like to quote the Bible necessarily,
Yeah.
because so many of the preachers, like for example, yesterday I was doing an episode, and we were talking about a verse like I don't know if you've heard about it, Jeremiah 29 verse 11. I know the plans I have for you. Do you know?
I've heard of that verse.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's
yeah.
a verse that says,
Yeah. Don't worry, God's looking out for you.
Yes. Now that in its historical context was God speaking to the Israelites when they were in captivity,
Oh, okay.
and telling them that I will never forget you. I still have plans for you. I've
Yeah.
not forgotten about you.
Yeah.
So what our modern preachers do is that they take that verse, they take it out of context, then they tell you as a congregant to speak it to yourself, to speak that truth to yourself,
Yeah.
to own it. And how do you start owning it? By giving him money.
Yeah. I think the other side to that, though, is that I think there have been studies that those who do believe in God, or those who do attend churches, actually have higher levels of happiness, right?
Okay.
Because I think those who question, is there a God, question the system, question it all, it's not necessarily a source of like knowingness. So I think people do appreciate to think, okay, there is a higher power, there is a level of guidance. And I think there's something in human nature as well, as we just want to be told what the truth is. We don't want to necessarily discover it ourselves. So there is this comfort in a world that's rapidly changing of going to church on a Sunday and hearing the message. So I think, yes, people are questioning it more, but I'm not sure that the directions they're going away from the church are necessarily better directions. Certainly them expressing their freedom is good, but you look at this younger generation and a lot of the lifestyle habits they have, I wouldn't say that's better than going to church on a Sunday.
That's very true. That's a very good observation.
Often we reject something corrupt in search of a greater truth, but as all humans search for truth, there are many paths of deception that we can kind of stumble down. So I
we
think
sink deeper into corruption and into,
of course.
when we're living this deception, we go into an even greater form of deception.
Because if there is no God, as Nietzsche said, God is dead, then we can live in the self-delusion that we are God.
Yeah.
And if we are God, then no one is above us, and then we can have any opinion and act it forth, So I think there's danger to that arrogance. Not danger to the freedom, but danger to that arrogance for sure.
Yeah, it's a dangerous one.
Yeah.
That is interesting. So when you look at these cultures, or maybe you have been here, I don't know, for a few days, a few months.
Yeah, I've been. Yeah, I think overall I've spent 6 months or more in Kenya.
Around 6 months. So have you noticed? What can you say about our culture generally? What you have?
Well, like I said in the intro, I think the people are incredibly open and friendly.
Yeah.
I feel like of all the foreign places I've been, I'm really able to connect with Kenyans because of the language.
Okay.
I think we were discussing it the other day. I think so much of like language itself conveys culture.
Yes.
I can joke, I can have a deep discussion, I can, banter with you. That's harder for me if I even go to Europeanized places like Spain or France or parts of South America where there's a totally different language. So there's that ultimate barrier to a deeper connection. So I love that about Kenya, that it's so far. And, you guys are trying to integrate so many ideas at once. It's this like society of rapid evolution. So you've got the tribes and you've got this, this nation that still has a colonial architecture, even if you've taken back the reins of power.
Yeah.
You've got globalized ideas coming in on the algorithm, and you're trying to synthesize all this stuff at once, and it's a big project, and no wonder people get lost down certain moral rabbit holes or immoral rabbit holes.
No.
But I'm super impressed with this country and its people, and excited to kind of see, where it goes. I mean, Africa's really based on birth rates alone.
Yeah.
Not only the genesis of where humanity came from, but in many ways the future of this world.
Initially, we used to have very many babies. Like when I was growing up, you would find a family with maybe 10, 11 kids.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's growing more Western.
Yeah, we got declining birth rates,
Yes,
which is sad.
the middle class are giving birth less than our typical middle class in their older days, my grandfather's years.
What do you associate that to?
I think it's a lot of westernization and a lot of borrowing from the Western culture, especially from America, where family is just a man and a woman getting together and having maybe one kid, and that's enough. Initially, our wealth, some communities in Kenya, the level of wealth was dependent on the sizes of their families. So you would find like the Maasai, a man would have 3, 4, 5 wives and so many children. So our culture is becoming a lot Western.
Well, I was going to say, would you say it's westernized, or would you say as society becomes more materialistic, the birth rate drops in part because, according to that theory, a lot of these impoverished people saw historically, and it happened in our cultures as well, pre-industrial revolution, that children were actually a way to escape poverty. It only took one successful child to perhaps bring the whole family out of poverty.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even necessarily that people were having so many children in this spiritual, were importing God's souls into the, into this reality.
Okay.
It was more, that's how materialism, you could escape and advance your material conditions potentially.
That's a very great point.
Whereas now, if you attain material conditions through personal success, maybe kids are seen as a drain on that. Whereas if I have more kids, I'm going to have to spend more, and then I can't get the newer car or the bigger house. So perhaps it's a continuation of materialism of why there's less kids as opposed to westernization. I'm only saying that because our birth rates, 100 years ago, people were having 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. I mean, my mother has 7 siblings, or she's one of 7. So I think when there was more poverty, there was more children, and now that we're more materially accomplished, we're selfish and we don't want to reduce our resources, because if you go to the villages in Kenya still, I'm sure the birth rate is incredibly high.
And actually, that's a great point. I've never looked at it that way.
Okay, cool.
Never looked at it that
These
way.
discussions bring out new ideas. It's great.
Yes, and it could be more material.
I think it's material. I don't think it's Westernism, because I just think you got to understand, human nature is human nature. We just, the industrial revolutions just came to us first.
Yeah.
When you look to the West, and I'm saying this as a warning and as a prophecy, when you look to the West from Kenya, know that if you adopt our technologies and our ideas, then you're going to be heading down the same path. So if there's things in European or American or Western culture or Australian culture you don't like more broadly, address it now, because it's coming here.
Yeah, it is.
Because the materialism, the low birth rates, they came to us. You see them coming here with middle class people. So in a sense, you guys are in a very unique position, because sometimes in the West we say, oh, we wish we didn't go down that path, but oh well, we're here now. You guys have everything going on at once here. You've got, like we said, the extreme rich, the extreme poor, extreme advancements, the extreme dispossessed. So you really can craft a society perhaps how you want it more than we can, because we're deep down that path of materialism and atheism and other ideas that perhaps don't always serve us.
That's very interesting. I have never really looked at it like that.
And look, it's just my theory from experience.
Yes,
I mean, it's not,
an interesting one. And I
I'm just
agree
throwing
with
the
it.
idea out there.
I agree with it because you see, even the families that are getting less kids in our culture right now are not poor families.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Poor families.
Yeah.
There, you can go to a 5-bedroom, 6-bedroom mansionette and you find there are 2 kids.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While in the past that would have like probably 15, 20 kids.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's materialism.
Yeah. So look, the West is to blame for a lot of things, but we don't want to take responsibility for your low birth rates. I think that's just human nature and materialism in general, you know.
Okay,
But I think the other side to that is also modern politics, right? We live in a world where fear, things that might not even particularly affect us, we think will affect us. You know, all of a sudden there's a war going on the other side of the world, and maybe someone's getting anxiety saying, is it safe for me to bring my child into this world? You know, so I think fear is the other side of why, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people, you know, on the progressive left who genuinely want to save the planet, and they think the planet is ultimately being destroyed by humans.
Okay.
And therefore, if I bring a new child into the world, I'm ensuring the destruction of the planet. So I think there's a lot of political philosophies themselves in the West which are anti-human, and that's another reason for, you know, declining birth rates.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how would you describe Australian culture to someone who has never been there, beyond the stereotypes?
Look, most Kenyans don't even particularly know of stereotypes.
Stereotypes,
When I say, what do you know about Australia?
Yeah.
They say snakes and spiders, you know. I think the first thing to say about spiders for those Kenyans who I encourage to come to Australia, because you're such, you know, wonderful, beautiful people, and we're very welcoming. And we do have a Kenyan population in Australia. I think it's mainly in the cities, you know, it's mainly in the cities. And actually, I hear about them. I'm not living in a city myself, so I haven't engaged with them. But now I know Kenyans. I'm sure the ones in Australia are equally. I'm sure you're exporting, you know.
I know at least 8 of my friends who are there.
There you go.
Adelaide or something.
But not many people die from spiders. I think it's like 1 spider death in the last 8 years. I think people think we have this country of incredibly scary creatures, and therefore they don't want to come. As Australians, we don't mind, because I think the general political consensus in Australia is, I mean, we're the only country that's also a continent. And, you know, it's a huge landmass, as you've seen on a map. Otherwise, go take a look. And we don't have a high population. It's about 25 million. And I think the consensus is now with prices and other things, we don't particularly want to increase the population. So if people think there's snakes and spiders and that's a reason for them not to show up, we don't mind. But actually, you know, so that's not an issue. We do have, you know, a lot of animals, but I think Australians are very friendly people. We're very open people. We're laid back. We have kind of a natural distrust of authority. We don't like being told what to do. You know, we didn't descend from aristocrats or even the wealthy particularly. So I think we have a really healthy relationship to those in power, and not particularly elevating them. Okay. You know, which I love about our culture. Okay. Whereas I think other cultures, you know, there's that more, you know, that reverence for those with money. I mean, we don't think someone with money is better than us. In fact, we might question, hey, how did you get it? Who did you exploit? You know, I mean, I don't have that personal view. But I do think, you know, Australians will judge a man or a woman based on their character more than anything else, you know? Okay. So in that sense, yeah, we're a very open, inviting culture.
One of my friends told me that when they go, and they're actually in Australia.
Yeah, great.
They were telling me that people live as individuals as opposed to how we live as a community. Like where we come from, even growing up. Yeah. You knew all your neighbors. You knew everything about them. You were always with them. Yeah. But I hear that, especially in European countries, that the culture is more keep it to yourself and do your own stuff, and as opposed to it's different from
collectivism.
Ours. Yes.
It's very interesting. I often ask myself those questions. I read there's this famous philosopher called Rudolf Steiner. I went to a Steiner school, and he's got this certain educational philosophy, but actually he's written about almost every single theory on human nature. He's dissected Christianity and the human conditions and the worlds of angels and a million other things. He has this theory that, like, certain foods have certain properties, and those properties fundamentally affect certain cultures. One of his theories is actually cultures that consume more sugar are incredibly individualistic compared to cultures that don't. And he developed this theory at, you know, really the turn of the 20th century. So he was kind of looking at Asiatic and other cultures which were much more like conformist versus European and American cultures, which are much more individualized. Japanese culture pre-World War I is another example of that. And as these cultures have become more westernized in terms of just their diet alone, I think there's high levels of individualism. Like, I don't look around Nairobi thinking you guys are part of some family or tribal collective.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are very modern, very individualistic, very, you know, your concerns are your own. I mean, by definition, a society that is materialistic is individualistic.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think one exists within the other. So, no, back to your question, in terms of like individualism, do I think it exists higher in the West?
Yeah.
Yes, but I also think younger generations in all cultures are more individualistic,
yeah.
you know. I think mainly because of the rise of materialism,
Yeah.
but as a tangent, Steiner might say equally because of diet.
Okay.
You know?
Because of diet.
Yeah.
I'm very big on diet. by
Well,
the way.
he had another interesting theory, which is those who eat potatoes naturally just want to sink into comfort, become lethargic. You know, we have the expression couch potato as well. Those who perhaps eat beetroot become more curious and more interested in learning. You know, and the Bible also says, "Let the food be thy medicine."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So perhaps the idea that, you know, not just the ideas we consume, but also the foods we consume affect, you know, our well-being and our perspective. I mean, it might seem a bit woo-woo now, but, you know, I think there is some merit to those ideas.
Yeah, I read somewhere that we are what we eat.
Well, we are, you know, what we eat. I mean, but I guess we are what we consume is maybe a better way to put it. And food is only one of the things we consume. We also consume ideas, and we also consume, you know, other aspects that are going on in the world. But yeah,
Okay.
you know, it's
Okay.
interesting.
I'll look at it when you've mentioned potatoes. There is
Yeah, look. Yeah, well, you know what?
I'm just
do
thinking
the
about the potato.
do the experiment. You know, go. I'm going to read a book, eat a whole bunch of potatoes one day, and then the next day, you know, have some beetroots and see what inspires your curiosity. Now, I'm not saying it's true. I mean, I'm just trying to interplay with the idea that there are different theories on why you know, people are more individual or not, or why they're more motivated or more lethargic or seek comfort or whatever it is. You know.
So let's say Silas was moving to Australia.
Yeah, please come, come. You know,
If I was moving to
I'll
Australia.
write you a visa. Look, it's hard to get there, you know, with our current immigration laws, but I'll certainly write you a good recommendation letter.
So let's say Silas is moving to Australia.
Okay.
And we've met here, like we've met here
Yeah.
in Kenya. What would you tell me about Australia? Like, I'm telling you, I'm just going to this city. What advice would you give to me?
Well, I mean, I would ask you why you're going to Australia. You know, why does Silas want to go to Australia? I mean,
Okay.
I don't think my pitch has been particularly good.
Yeah.
You know, I think you'll discover many more beautiful things in Australia that I haven't even disclosed. But look, we're a country of incredible natural beauty, and we have some of the best beaches in the world. We have, you know, apparently, I don't know if it's true, but someone said there's more camels in the deserts of Australia than the rest of the Middle East combined.
Okay.
So people don't know that. We've got amazing landscapes. But I think really we are a culture that's being built on successive layers of immigrations from different parts of the world. And therefore, perhaps we don't have, except the indigenous culture, of course, we don't have a particularly deep history.
Okay.
So I would say if you want to come to Australia, come for the people, the freedoms, and come for the natural beauty.
So how are the people there?
Oh, look, Australians are very friendly, very open people, always down to joke, always down to mock. You know, we like to bring people down a bit. You know, we don't like people who have extravagant egos. You know,
Okay.
No, we're very friendly people. I mean, look, it's changing around the world. There's these nationalism seems to be rising, you know, and there's these anti-immigration movements from across the world, and, you know, political parties on the right are coming into greater ascendancy because they genuinely are speaking to people's fear about cultural change. Because even though Australians don't have like a particularly deep history, you know, the country itself was colonized, you know, in the late 1700s. Even though we don't have a particularly deep history, we're still very proud of who we are. And the idea that excessive immigration might shift certain values of ours is scary, and rightly so to many Australians. So I think, yes, we're friendly, but and there's no dislike of different races. I think Australia is a very like racially inclusive country, but increasingly there's like skepticism and mistrust of certain cultures, you know.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of our connection, there doesn't seem to be many cultural differences, right? Because we're understanding the same language,
Yes.
the same ideas,
Yeah.
you know, the same common themes.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, Australians, all cultures, Kenyans, everyone is very proud of who they are. I mean, I've never met a culture that doesn't like themselves. So in that sense, I think with the rise of immigration, Australia is really trying to define who it is and still trying to hold on to some of its cultural values, being mindful that there are many people who are coming that don't necessarily share those values. And that's not always a bad thing, because often these people are bringing in good values from their own culture, which hopefully helps our own culture evolve. So yeah, because we don't have, you know, a racial, you know, we're not a nation based on race. We are a multicultural society.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, and multiracial. So in that sense, becoming Australia and what Australia is a different narrative than what's going on here in Kenya, where obviously you have some ethnic minorities, right? It's the Nilots and it's the Bantus, and there's histories that you can understand and histories of intermingling over hundreds of, you know.
Like I wanted to ask you this, and I know you've said you've been here a little over 6 months.
Yeah.
In your own view, what have you observed? Like if you were to paint a picture to someone about how Kenya is, without sugarcoating anything, just what have you generally observed about Kenya in terms of the people, in terms of our culture, from a person coming outside looking in?
Yeah. Well, I'll say, first off, when we look at Kenya on a map, we see the equator, and, you know, it gets hot in Australia, and we see that equator line and we think, oh, it's going to be hot there. Okay. But, you know, obviously the coast is boiling, and that's offset by these amazing beaches. But I didn't even know about, you know, I'm so ignorant. I didn't even know about the highlands, and how cool. And like, I've never been, I mean, Nairobi is, of all the places I've been to, like year round, the consistently most amazing climate. Okay. You know, so I mean, I already love that. But yeah, again, I think the best, most powerful thing about Kenya is its people. I mean, that's economically true because labor is so cheap. Yeah. You know, but it's also true, I think, in terms of why people should come here. It's to meet Kenyans, you know, because I think
are very friendly,
very open. You can ask any question, you know, they're happy to discuss it, you know. Very few things are taboo here. Yes. It's not a country of political correctness. Yes. You can have a different opinion. I mean, look, I when I first came to Kenya, my expectation was, because I originally came to do some humanitarian work, there's this wonderful organisation in Australia called Global Ripple, and they'd been wanting to kind of invest money in Kenya. And I said, well, look, I'm going to go there. If you want, you know, I'll find communities in need and we can, you know, distribute it accordingly. But before that, I wasn't too aware of African politics. But in terms of like multiracial societies, I knew about South Africa. And I know there's a lot of racial tensions there. And I thought, oh, I wonder if me coming to Kenya as a white person, are people going to say, hey, what are you doing back here? We got rid of you. You know, we got rid of the British, you know, even though I'm not British, but, you know, what are you doing back here? But instead, people have just welcomed me with open arms, and there is such incredible friendliness and curiosity, you know. Having achieved nothing, I sometimes feel like a celebrity, you know. The kids want to come up to you and ask you questions, and, you know, people will stop you on the streets. And maybe there's an agenda behind that sometimes too that now I'm aware of that I perhaps wasn't originally. But no, very open, friendly people. That's why I'd recommend people come here.
One of the agenda is people wanting money.
It's wanting
or
money.
Assuming that you have a lot of money. And
which, definitely an assumption you have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I guess from their perspective, you do have a lot of money relative to them. Yes. But what they don't consider about white people is we're also in a lot of debt. You know, so our debt obligations are also very like proportional or sometimes outstretch our incomes. Even though we have a higher wage, we also have incredibly higher costs of living. You know, these amazing apartments you can get in Nairobi, you'd be paying 4, 5, 6 times the price in an Australian city. That's true. Food, you know, is food that's grown here, not imported food, but any food grown here is radically cheaper than in our country. So yes, we are richer in general and from richer economies. And I do think sometimes some of the people that come over here because they are rich and they know people will love them because they are rich. So they exploit that You know, we know what we're saying here. You know, they
Yeah.
exploit that, I think.
Yeah.
But and I think that was a bit hard for me originally because we all want to be liked for who we are, for the ideas we bring, for the values we bring.
Yeah.
But I sometimes found perhaps people more just like me because they think I present a certain opportunity to them. But having said that, that's fair enough too. I'm always chasing opportunities. Who am I to begrudge anyone that is
doing
also
the same.
chasing, you know, their own self-interest?
You've mentioned something about we like to be loved based on who we are.
Yeah.
Have you what have you generally viewed in terms of the people you've interacted with, and by people I mean Australians, Africans, or anyone you've interacted with? Do you think people love you for who you are or for the value they can draw from you?
I think originally it's from the value they can draw from you, but that just speaks to humans having selfish interest in general.
Yes.
I mean, do people love their job or do they love the value, the paycheck they can extract from it? So I wouldn't even say that's a criticism. I think in all cultures, I think we mix with people, but, you know, why do we like some neighbors and not other neighbors?
Yeah.
Because, you know, we have a friendly relationship with some, or they're generous. So I don't begrudge that. So certainly, yes, people originally, except children who are genuinely just curious and perhaps have never seen a foreigner or at least engaged so closely with one.
Yes.
I think adults, you know, seek something, but again, I don't begrudge that. But I think the seeking comes first, and then if that friendship or connection develops, then they genuinely get to know you as a person, and like all humans, will like you or dislike you based on your character.
Do you think
know?
that also applies in relationships? Man and a woman, girlfriend, boyfriend?
You know what? I think from, you know, discussions with my Kenyan friends, in Kenya, in relationships, they will certainly settle for someone they don't like who provides for their material needs much more than in Australia. You know, in Australia, broadly, we really seek like character compatibility. I mean, obviously you want the attraction, and of course, ideally your partner is generous and kind, but there's certainly not the expectation of women in Australia that the man will provide them everything. And therefore relationships that do come about in Australia are much more egalitarian and equal.
It's much more egalitarian.
You know? It's very rare in Australia for a woman to see a man that she's fundamentally unattracted to and think, I'm going to make him my partner simply because he's going to economically provide for me. I mean, the amount of sacrifices she would have to make, personal sacrifices, to be in such a relationship is not something that I think most Australian women are willing to engage in. Whereas I noticed here, and perhaps it's because of the poverty, that a lot of Kenyan women will make that sacrifice.
Yes, there's a lot of talk about money, income, how much you earn.
But it doesn't reduce the need for human connection, which is a human need. So while a woman may be with a man because he can economically provide, often I find this woman is still cheating or perhaps has other partners on because she still craves human connections. She still craves relationships with genuine intimacy and affection. So it doesn't mitigate that.
Yes,
you know,
it doesn't.
Money,
It doesn't.
you know, money can buy you a partner in Kenya, but perhaps it can't buy you loyalty or love.
It won't buy
You know, that's
loyalty.
my
And actually, if they're
observation.
attracted to you because of the money, more money will take them away from you. If money is what is bringing
I was going to
them
say, if someone dates you because of money, and you know, you are incredibly vulnerable.
Yes.
Incredibly vulnerable. And you know, and I have, you know, some female friends, and you know, perhaps they're on online dating sites looking for European men. Because, you know, and they won't even date Kenyan men, which is, I think it's tragic. You know, because they themselves are a product of a beautiful Kenyan, two Kenyan parents.
Kenyan
you know what I mean?
parents,
So like, there seems to be a willing. I've met a class of women who say they only want to date a foreigner because they're not a fan of Kenyan men for whatever reason. And then they say, oh, look, I'm going to bring him to Kenya. And I say, don't do that. Because as soon as you bring him to Kenya, he's going to realize how many options he really has. You better be very, very secure in that relationship because women are going to throw themselves at him. And unless you're very secure in that relationship and there is a deeper connection and it's not based on you coveting his materialism and him having lust for you, be careful because that relationship probably won't last. Better you go to Europe. Because in Europe, as a beautiful Kenyan girl, you're going to be in demand. You know, it's the economics of supply and demand. You know, I think a lot of white men here are particularly not attractive, and back home, I think they wouldn't even have luck in relationships. They certainly could not date these young, beautiful women.
Yeah.
But here they come, and they're in demand, and they can date these young, beautiful women.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, men are smart. They know why. You know, they know what's going on sometimes and why they're coming here. So yeah.
And it's taking me to that conversation on just general value.
Yeah.
Yes. I read somewhere that women prioritize survival. Men prioritize conquest. So men are more of conquering, doing this and this. Women are more of surviving.
Yeah.
And in a culture like ours, you'll that's why you'll see that happen quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because if you put 5 random girls and one of them goes to them and tells them that I have a boyfriend, here's the first question they would ask her: what does he do?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that is the first question.
Okay.
Here in Kenya.
Yeah.
That's the first question.
Okay. As in they're trying to deduce
his
economic
value,
status.
Economic status. When it comes to men, you put 5 random men and one comes and says, hey, I have a girlfriend. Everyone will, let's see a picture.
Yeah.
How does she look?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's why, it's why we joke that a CEO of a Fortune 500 company very well could go to a restaurant, see a waitress he loves, fall in love with the waitress and marry her.
Yeah.
That largely doesn't happen if you reverse the gender roles.
Never
Very
happen.
rarely do you find an incredibly successful woman, and increasingly there's many of them, which is fantastic, who will go and find an incredibly poor man and based originally on physical attraction decide to, you know...
And funny bit, even if they find them, let's say, for example, in the unlikely circumstance that a wealthy woman marries a poor man.
And it does happen too, right?
Yes,
it does.
You know,
it
so
does happen.
in the unlikely circumstance that happens, you'll find that the man will be beat up, he would be dominated, he'll be sort of docile.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like actually physically assaulted?
Not really physically, but he will be... His ego would be bruised.
Okay.
He would look like, for lack of a better way to put it, like the woman in the relationship. Most of the time. Actually, 99% of the time.
Yeah, wow.
It is very difficult.
It's emasculating. Huh?
Yes, it's emasculating.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is very difficult to find a poor Kenyan man married to a very rich lady, and the man is sort of the head.
Yeah. It's emasculating, but do you think it's a compromise Kenyan men would still happily make? Even though it's emasculating, if you asked your male friends, hey, do you want to be with a super rich woman? She'll be wearing the pants, calling the shots. How many of them do you think would say, yeah, let's do it?
Now, I'll answer that question, and that is the birth of this podcast.
Oh, is it?
That's the birth of the podcast.
Okay, someone's got a rich sugar mama in your life?
No. It's the answer to that question is the birth of this.
Okay.
The reason why we created this podcast, because from an economic standpoint, nowadays it was not like that in the past. You'll find many men now can say yes to a rich woman who
I think many would.
Who would wear the pants. Many would.
Many.
And that is why we came up with this podcast, so that we tell them no, don't.
Well, I mean, yes, it's good you're telling them don't, perhaps, but is it even something that's easy for them to access? Because, like we said, it's still very rare for an ultra wealthy woman to want to go and find a very poor man.
Yeah,
that's still not a phenomenon we see.
Yeah,
I mean, you still see more men coming to these third world countries and finding partners than you see rich women doing it, even though they can. I mean, they have, the Kenyan government doesn't say, hey, we'll accept older white men, but not older white women. There's still that opportunity there. Women aren't pursuing it. And again, that could just go down to genuine gender differences in terms of what is prioritized.
And actually, the emasculation of men in our society has led to a lot more problems than we had in the past.
Yeah.
There's a lot of absentee fathers, and I know you've noticed that by now.
I've noticed
because you're in the same industry that I am in.
Yeah.
In humanitarian work, you will notice that.
Oh, it's tragic.
Family,
And
There's a lot of
these beautiful children
Yeah.
who, I mean, they just never knew their fathers, perhaps,
Yeah.
or their fathers abandoned the family. And I don't know, like I actually think, you know, I mean, this is my own theory, but I think there's like a link between absent fathers and like drinking culture
Yes.
here in Kenya too, because it's a wild drinking culture.
Yes.
You know, and I think there's just a lot of childhood pain there. You know, I think people need a father, they need a mother, they need a father, and when a man abdicates that role,
Yeah.
you don't know the damage you're doing to that child. And yeah, they might be super intelligent and put on a brave face and be social and friendly, but you know, if they're drinking to the point of sickness every weekend, like there's an inner pain there, you know.
Yeah.
Don't and I think in Kenyan culture as well, there isn't necessarily that, compared to the West, there's not that openness of like, what wounds did you suffer as a child? Where is your pain? Where is your insecurity?
Yeah.
And in the absence of that, people maybe try and mask it with materialism, or with
by the way-
drinking,
by
or with
the-
sex, or with other.
By the way, in that emasculation that I'm talking about, that has led to a lot of absent fathers, statistically, and this is common statistics here in Kenya, about 60, if I'm not wrong, between 50, 60, 70%
Yeah.
of the men in prison are coming from a home where their father was absent.
Yeah. Wow.
In prison, in Kenya.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a global trend. I think it's similar to incarceration.
places.
Yeah, exactly.
and that's why we created this podcast, so that we can talk to men, talk about how a man should be,
Yeah.
or what a man is, in order to re-energize, refocus men, because I see with a lot of emasculation, there's a lot of lack of focus with
I was
the
going
men.
to say, so my question to you would be why? I think all cultures can agree that any father abandoning or abusing their child
Yeah.
causes incredible harm.
Yeah.
So why do such a high proportion of Kenyan men, according to you, abandon the role of fatherhood once they've done the act to initiate it?
Yeah, I think many of them have not been taught commitment, or many of them have not embraced the culture of commitment, and sex was just for fun. That is for start. There are so many reasons.
Yeah.
That could be one, just having fun, wanting to have the fun in the sex without the responsibility
Sure.
that comes
Yeah.
with it. Secondly, we have taken female empowerment too far sometimes.
Okay, that's a hot take.
Yes, in how
Wouldn't
we
be allowed to say that in Australia.
in how we view it, and I'm just speaking behaviorally.
Yeah, no, I'm
necessarily.
interested in some examples.
Yes, like for example, women were empowered, and they have been empowered a lot. But the empowering is not like we want women to have equal job opportunities, which I agree with, which is a kind of empowerment I agree with.
yeah.
Access to education and all that.
Yeah.
What has happened is how the society has taken it, that when we are lifting the girl child, we are lifting him at the expense of the boy.
Okay.
So the boy has been left with no mentorship at all, but there is a whole big industry, a very huge industry,
Yeah.
that focuses on women rights, children, the female rights, and all those things. So we don't have.
So it's not that you're critical of that industry so
No,
much.
no,
of
no, no, no.
The same infrastructure
Needs
to be placed
Because this
towards
is what
men,
you
which I agree with. I think there's young men are at an existential crisis of meaning
And actually,
these days around the world.
this is what I mean. I'm not saying that there is anything evil in what is being done in the empowering of women.
which is essential. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
What has happened is women have been empowered a lot, but the men and the boy child have been left with nothing but to fend for themselves.
Yeah.
The things I know about masculinity, I can tell you, growing up, nobody sat me down and taught me how to be a man.
Yeah.
I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
I had to look for it in books.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was born a lady, I would probably interact with organizations that would care for me,
Yeah.
that would talk to me about what being a woman is.
Yeah.
I will get access to a lot of things that talks about what being a woman is.
Yeah.
And by the way, the reason why I'm saying this, in our TikTok, or from our TikTok, I get a lot of contacts. I get contacted even by women.
Yeah.
Who would
You're a
like
handsome
me,
guy. I'm sure you do.
Yes, who would
sure.
like me to mentor their son
Oh, great, yeah.
Yes, and
and are these because the father's out of the picture, or
Yes.
the father's so emasculated that there's not even mentorship
could be
being
both.
offered?
Could be both.
Yeah.
You hear a woman tell you, I've listened to what you were speaking about men, and I think the kind of content you share builds strong men.
Yeah.
Hey, I would like my son to be a strong man. What could you do for him?
Yeah.
Those are the
Beautiful.
kind of
Yeah.
things we have. So
Yeah.
it is not that it's the evil in empowering women. It's that the men have been forgotten.
Well, I think for so long, men oppressed women effectively, under cultural norms, that when the rise of feminism tried to like break that apart, which is a good thing, a lot of men, instead of saying, okay, what do I do? Well, sorry, they didn't know what to do, because their old traditional roles were challenged, and rightly so. But instead of stepping into new, healthy, ethical forms of leadership, they've kind of abdicated that responsibility, and they're unsure of who they are or what their contribution to society necessarily is. Because historically it was women contribute this, men contribute this.
Yeah.
Now it's women can contribute anything they want. And in many cases, women make more valid contributions to these industries that were traditionally dominated by men. Women are very competent at many of the things that were man roles. So there probably has been a bit of a displacement and dispossession in the minds of men of like, what is their contribution? But I think that's wrong, and I think there are many contributions that men and the masculine in general should be making.
Yes, because to set myself as an example, I have learned more about what being a man is from books and podcasts,
Sure,
than from a fellow man. Like even the men that are present, we are not the kind of men that are picking up a younger generation and telling them, hey, this is how you ought to behave.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the masculine behavior, this is not. And it happens more so in the villages.
Yeah.
It happens in the remote areas of Kenya where the culture is more conservative. But for us who are living in towns, you are left to fend for yourself. So you find, like, for example, you find a man who's just grown up with a mother. Then they go to boarding school, to high school, and then they meet other men there. And you find even his behaviors are not like if the guy was working with other guys who are older than him, telling him this is how a man behaves. So you find that many people discover masculinity way late in life.
Oh, of course.
In campus.
Of course.
And all that. Yeah. And that has become a very big problem.
I mean, we're incredibly social creatures. I mean, I don't know how it was for you growing up, but I think as much as parents want to, assuming there are two parents that want to actually influence the direction of their child. I mean, as soon as you send that child to school and they're spending 6 to 10 hours a day with another social group that's not you, and you're coming home from work and you're tired and you're putting them in front of the TV, like, you're not their role models anymore. Yeah. Their role models all of a sudden are their peer group, and their peer group, who knows what they're being influenced by. So I think there's a lot of disconnect between this modern generation and their parents, because in the past there was that closer relationship with family, and you lived often to impress the father or the mother, whereas increasingly you're living selfishly to impress yourself or your peer group. And there's negative influences there.
And one thing I've also seen, even in when it comes to relationships, especially with people in campuses, those that are discovering what it means to be a man, due to lack of not being taught a lot about relationships, like we don't literally, it was a topic that was frowned upon.
Like regarding commitment and regarding...
Yes, relationships. So it was very difficult to find our parents sitting us down and telling us that, hey, you're a man, this is what it means to date, this is the kind of woman you should date. Because that is an information that people don't have. So we've had incidences, and many of the people who follow me, you'll find that they go to campus, they try to discover love while they when they meet someone. They make a lot of mistakes.
But I think they make mistakes because they didn't have role models.
Yeah.
Like perhaps they didn't come from a home where the mother and father were together, or they were together and they looked at the dynamics of that marriage and they said, not for me. I think relationships is the most complicated thing because I mean, who agrees on what? I mean, who are the role models in society of what a healthy relationship is? I mean, the closest many of us get to witnessing a healthy relationship is a Hollywood movie.
Exactly.
It's an hour and a half of a pure, amazing, emotionally driven love story,
Great.
and we want that. It doesn't mean we know how to find it. It doesn't mean we know how to build it or develop it. So I think it's very difficult. And sometimes people who claim to have a good relationship and do it as I do it, I might not want that dynamic.
Yes.
I mean, do you think, for example, we go back to pre-colonial Kenya, and your grandfathers, you're Luo, so
Yeah.
your grandfathers were presumably having multiple wives.
Yeah.
Do you think the wives in that relationship dynamic were happy, or do you think those relationship structures were set up to advantage and benefit men, and therefore men were happy, but actually the wives really suffered under it and had jealousy and had other negative thoughts as a result of that dynamic?
If I look at it from a very neutral point,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say. I would say they were more settled than. I would not talk about happiness.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have a matrix to measure how happy they were. But what I observed is you could find, let's say, a Mzee Luo. Mzee is an old man in Kenya.
Yeah.
You would find a Luo Mzee guy with 3 or 4 wives, and all the 3 and the 4 wives live in the same compound, and they get along.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, great. Yeah.
From that authority that the man sets, he would make sure that they get along.
And that makes
He was not guaranteed that they were going to get along, but for the most of the part when he lived in that community, they got along.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
like my grandfather had 3 wives, and all their children are my uncles, including my dad.
And if you don't mind me asking, are you the descendant from which wife? Are you the descendant from the first, the second, or the third?
I think the first.
Okay.
I think the first.
So you can go, you know what? I'm pro-monogamy. I'm not even a product of polygamy. My ancestry line is purely monogamous.
I know.
Praise the Lord.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
But
Well, yeah, exactly. You go, maybe in that line it is, but one generation backwards, and maybe your grandfather's from the second wife.
yes.
Yes.
So, and that has got me questioning a lot, asking so many questions.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions around
Because when you look at that culture and how our grandparents were, and then now the marital problems that were there, the disagreements which are normal for human beings when they interact with each other. The more we have gone deeper into what we are today, the less happier I see relationships.
Yeah.
I don't seem to see them happier than those relationships.
No, exactly.
Yes.
I think a lot of that is there's too much choice these days. There was such rigid social dynamics back then that your grandfather could say, look, you are my 3 wives.
Yeah.
This is the way our culture has been for however many hundreds or thousands of years.
Yeah.
Let's work within this very narrow framework to make it as good as possible. Whereas right now in modern dating culture, you can be with anyone you want. You don't have to settle. You can date him, her, whoever you like. And if they piss you off or if they do something that annoys you, I'm going to find someone else because someone's out there. And I feel like a lot of young women in Kenya these days, they don't like the idea of the polygamy of their ancestors.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't want you having, multiple wives. And yet I say to them, fair point, but don't you think modern monogamous culture actually cultivates a lot more sexual partners than ancient polygamy? Because, back in the day, your grandfather, he may have had 3 wives, but in the course of his lifetime, he may have had 3 women.
Yeah.
Whereas young men and young women these days, like their body count is
It's too high.
incredibly it not only does it exceed, their grandfather, it exceeds successive generations of their lineage compounded. So, if young women are saying, "Oh no, I want monogamy, but I'm going to be with all these different men," well, perhaps that's not a better outcome than
And
a polygamous. Taking the Christianity aside from it, what do you really want? Do you want to feel safe in a relationship, or do you want to,
And some of them, I usually say that if our parents knew what we were up to sexually, they would go crazy.
Yeah.
If they knew half of what their children are doing,
Especially
if they knew half
right,
of
and
what,
it's less for us in Australia, because in Australia, again, because we confronted, like we discussed earlier, some of these social issues before you guys. Often some of our parents in the baby boomer generation were quite promiscuous themselves.
Okay.
So
Baby boomers.
Yeah, so perhaps whereas your generation of baby boomers
Yeah.
perhaps weren't, right? So perhaps some of our baby boomers were more promiscuous in their youth. So they're kind of well aware that perhaps their children might be the same, if not more. How does your generation feel? Or how do you think the Gen Zs are going to feel as they're having kids? That their kids might be as promiscuous as they were? Is that going to curb it back to more conservatism, or are they going to accept that?
No, it is not going to take them to more conservatism. In fact, I'm afraid for our children.
Yeah, I know.
Because right now, at the age of 2021, it's very difficult to find a lady a virgin. And you see the confessions, even in books, even in podcasts. Many of them are talking about 6, 7, 10 sexual partners at 20.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the kind of generation that is going to come after that.
How do you approach that from a non-Christian angle? Like, if you were going to pitch to a young woman or a young man why they shouldn't have so many sexual partners and not using religious language, how would you seek to persuade them?
That's a good question. That's a very good
So
question.
we're reversing the roles here a bit, but I'm learning a lot. I've only got a shallow interpretation of Kenyan culture, and you've obviously got a deeper knowledge. So
I tell ladies this: one of a woman's greatest value is her sexuality, and something of value, if it is given around too easily, it becomes less valuable. And from an evolutionary and biological hardwiring and observation, I have found that a woman with so many sexual partners gets more and more detached from commitment of settling down with one partner.
And I think all the studies,
have shown
the data
that.
shows that.
Yes. You find that many of our celebrities do very badly when it comes to relationships.
Sure.
We know one who is in their 6th, 7th month.
Yeah.
And it's just a couple of 3-4 years. So the more sexual partners a woman has, the more detached she is, the more she cannot pair
the
bonds
more detached
sexually.
she is from the commitment to the relationship.
Yes.
And you think the same isn't true of men?
I think it's a bit... Yeah, it's true to men.
It's true to men. At least, surely the more sexual partners a man has, the more detached he is from the idea of monogamy.
Exactly.
Maybe he might still be committed to the wife and the family.
Yeah.
In a social sense.
Yes.
But outside of that,
he is that detached. There is detachment that is created from having many sexual partners.
Yeah, and I've noticed in Kenya, like, women, much more than in Australia, almost seem to have an acceptance that men will cheat.
Yeah.
Like, it's not joy in it, not pride in it, but like, it happens.
It happens.
It happens. How do I still secure this man within the context? And I also notice a lot of Kenyan women don't trust their other female friends around their man. Like, they'll keep that relationship separate.
They shouldn't.
Especially if he is materially successful, which is very interesting because, in Australian culture broadly, there is an incredible amount of loyalty between female friends. I mean, if you're a man and you're dating a woman and you even hint at making a move on her friend, I mean, that is the most incredible taboo. Whereas here,
it's a taboo.
Anecdotally, I'm told it happens quite a lot.
There's something called
quite a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to say it. Yeah.
So,
I almost say it.
Yeah. But having said that, it also makes me have an appreciation for Kenyans understanding and accepting elements of human nature that, in Western culture, because of maybe there's more Puritanism that we're not as endorsing of.
Yeah, it's a risk. Even introducing your boyfriend to just your best friend, a lady, it's a huge risk.
So what's the basis of these friendships if there's not loyalty?
That's
like,
why...
I mean, I can't even fathom the idea that I have a beautiful partner and I introduce a good friend and I think, okay, there's what percentage chance he's going to make a move? I mean, if I think there's more than a 2% chance that he's going to make a move, I mean, I don't want to be in that friendship because you want to feel safe in your friendships.
Yeah,
So,
your Kenyan friend, your Kenyan brother will make a move on your woman.
yeah.
Hands down, without even
And
thinking
what's the
twice.
basis? Is that a cultural thing that's
I think it's
pre-colonialism?
exploration and exploration.
Is it because you could have multiple wives in the
No,
past
not
that you
really.
can collect?
Not
multiple?
really, because monogamy is currently frowned upon across all cultures. Polygamy, sorry.
Polygamy.
Yes, is frowned upon.
Is that because of the church, or is that
It's the influence of the church.
So do you think, as the younger generation is breaking away from the church, that young men who all of a sudden don't have a god and are their own gods will step back towards advocating for those pre-colonial
They're actually
ideas of family?
They're already advocating for it. The problem is
Is there momentum behind that?
there is a
Are the
bit
women?
of,
Are the women? I mean, obviously, men like it.
Yeah.
Are the women going? Yeah, we want that as well.
No. Actually, what is happening is they are advocating it, but not from our ancestors' point of view. It's just like you can sleep with as many as possible without commitment.
So it's not I want multiple wives.
No,
it's just okay.
no.
Because it's expensive, right? I mean,
Yes,
that's the thing in
very
your
expensive.
culture. There's still the expectation that if you do have a partner or a wife,
Yeah.
which I like this expectation. It's a healthy one. It should exist in all cultures.
Yeah.
That the man provides
The man
and looks
provides.
after to the best of his ability.
Yes.
Whereas, that doesn't exist in some Western cultures where,
Oh, really?
well, I mean, we have, which is fantastic, same job, same pay laws, in Australia. So if a man and a woman are working the same job, rightly so, they're getting the same amount and they're probably both contributing an equal amount to the expenses of the mortgage and the food bill and the rent or anything else.
Okay.
So if you're a man and a woman and you're earning an equal amount in Australia, you're contributing that equal amount to the family.
You are.
Absolutely. As a general social rule or, social expectation, not in individual cases.
Okay.
I mean, certainly if you're a man and you're earning a lot more than a woman, or
You
even if
provide-
you're a woman earning a lot more than a man, the partner who brings in the most probably contributes the most to the relationship.
In our culture, it's the man who provides everything.
Regardless, right?
Regardless.
Yeah.
I have friends who are CEOs of big corporations.
Yeah.
They earn a lot of
So
money.
that itself is like an impediment to polygamy, that it's not
Exactly.
financially affordable despite the men having these ambitions.
Exactly. I have friends who are CEOs
Yeah.
in big corporations. I know a few,
Yeah.
and they're women,
Yeah.
but they still depend on their
Right.
husbands.
And it makes sense what you're saying because with modern dating,
Yeah.
it's so toxic that I can't even imagine these men want multiple wives because it's hard to hold down one relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yes.
especially if someone's driven by lust more than connection and intimacy,
Yeah.
then they want different partners.
Yes.
you know?
So with a Kenyan Gen Z population, they want more women, but
Yeah.
not more commitment.
not more commitment.
So you'll find a man who will opt out of getting married,
Yeah.
but will have a pool of women around.
So
him.
how would you what would you advise young women in this culture who are looking for a good man and not wanting to be kind of, I guess, sexually exploited? I had a friend tell me the other day, she said, because men sexualize us, we materialize them.
That's very true.
And I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. You know, as much as every guy wants to think they're loved for who they are, if you're just with a woman purely for sexual reasons and don't have an interest in a relationship, you shouldn't be too offended if she tries to
Yes.
monetize you. Now, neither are ideal.
Yes.
Neither
is
are
ideal,
good.
yeah.
So it's not that we should accept that
Yeah.
that very base level of like human engagement, but it's a bit of a contradiction for men to think that,
Yes.
they can,
So I think it's a zero sum game.
it's a zero sum
It's a
game. I
zero-sum
think.
game.
And then like you said, it affects future relationships
Yes.
because there's harder levels to commit. So what would you advise young women in Kenya today who are looking for a good man? What values do you think that they search in a man that they should pull back on? Perhaps they only want a rich man. You might say actually pull back on that.
Yeah.
And what are some like red flags they should look for in
I think
Kenyan men?
one of the things that I would, which is very important, that I would tell women to look for in a man is something we call a masculine frame.
Okay.
His mental, emotional, and behavioral foundation
Okay.
should be on top. Because a man who cannot control his emotions, cannot control his impulses, cannot control himself, will do more damage to you than one who can control himself. Before we go to the economic side of,
Yeah.
of it. For example, we have a lot of homicides that are done on account of love. Here in Kenya, there are so many cases.
Is it more men or
It's men. It's more men committing them,
killing the women?
against
Evil.
women. We had a story of
Evil.
a campus guy who drove 800 kilometers to go see a girlfriend, and then hacked the girlfriend dead because the girlfriend refused his advances. So when you have a generation of weak men, and by weak I mean those who cannot control their emotions, they cannot control their sexual desires, they cannot,
Yeah.
they have no control over themselves as men, you find that the women suffer more.
Yeah.
The women suffer more in that particular setup.
And do you think these particularly violent and dangerous men are men that don't have easy access to a sexual life, and therefore it's almost like incels, like they're involuntarily
Yes.
celibate? And because often you see that, unfortunately, in these mass killings in America and other places, a lot of these
Yeah.
men that are doing it are like, that they're not attractive to the female gender.
Yeah.
I remember my friend told me there's this statistic. He worked for one of these tech companies, and he said, do you know on Tinder
Yeah.
that 80% of women match 20% of men?
Yes.
And that means 20% of men are actually dating 80% of women.
Yes.
I mean, it's the 80-20 rule that applies
Yes.
to many things.
Yes.
But actually, and I think that's always existed throughout history, that
Yeah.
women like a certain type of man, and even if he's got another woman, they'll still rather be with him than a type of man they're not attracted to. So it leaves this mass group of men who fundamentally are not appealing to other women,
Yeah. And actually,
which is difficult for men.
80% of the women in a culture like ours are competing for 20% of the men.
Right?
That's why you see now
And then 20% of the men are with those women,
Yes.
and not committing to those
Yes,
women. And
they're
why
not
would they
committing.
need to? Because they've got access to 80% of women.
80% of the women, yeah.
It's
And that's
self-fulfilling.
how,
Yeah.
And that's how you see even the explosion of the single parent homes. That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons. Because these guys who have worked on themselves, maybe they have well financially, they are very masculine. They are very regulated emotionally.
Yeah.
They tend to be and yesterday we were talking about a seductive type
Yeah.
called the rake.
Okay.
And the
I think I
rake,
zoomed in for that. I think
Yes.
you were talking about the rake when I
yes,
watched for a
and
bit.
the rake is this 20% kind of man we are talking
Okay.
about, where he has his act together,
Yeah.
he has his finances in order, and he is very attractive to so many of the women.
Yeah.
So for him, he has a pool of he's lost for choice.
And does he settle easily, or he doesn't settle?
He never settles. So we were telling ladies that one of the dangers of dating a rake is that you'll have a problem with commitment.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't
it's too
want
much
to commit.
it's too much choice.
He has too much choice.
He's got too much
And
choice.
do
And he
you
lives in
know-
a society that says
Before
that
I lose
choice
the-
is permissible.
Before I lose this thought,
Sorry.
do you know that I read somewhere that says that men and these men are as faithful as their options?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, they're saying
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also not true for many men.
Okay.
Because I'm sure there are certainly I know in Australia there are many
who
men
are
who are
faithful.
rich, successful, handsome, they'd fit the category of rake,
Yeah.
and they're very kind of loyal to their partners.
Yeah.
But again, that could be for other reasons, not because they don't feel attraction to these other women's, but it could be because of social obligations or responsibility, or
Yeah.
maybe they've overcome lustful feelings, which is also a goal all men should probably work towards.
Yes, and
You know?
the other side of this spectrum is you find 80% of the men cannot get women.
80% even
When
even,
we're looking at it from
Right.
an 80-20 perspective,
yeah,
where 20% or 80% of the women are fighting for 20% of the men.
of course.
So that leaves the 80% of the men
Yeah.
in that pool.
Yeah.
And so these ones, many of them are going to become incels.
Right, and you just look at history. Most men throughout history, my understanding, have not procreated. Most women have.
Yes.
So there's a real power There's a real power to women, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the portals for these new lives that, you
Yeah.
know, men really got to get their act together, or otherwise, you know,
And that's why
they're in trouble.
we mostly, other than the episode we do with Tessa, the other episode I do with a guy called Steve, it's called the Man-Made Podcast,
Okay.
where we just talk about issues masculine, because we have seen
Yeah.
a lot of these problems as a result of the materialism.
Yeah.
We've also seen less men wanting to get into marriage, especially in our times.
Yeah.
It's something that is even scary to the church, where guys are literally sitting in meetings and saying, we've not had a wedding this year. Initially,
Yeah.
there were weddings every time.
Yeah,
Guys
wow.
were getting married.
Yeah, okay.
Now the idea of marriage and weddings, the idea of marriage is kind of getting eroded from our young people.
Wow.
Where you find so many young people who are successful,
Yeah.
don't want to get into a formal marital commitment
Yeah.
in our time and age.
So can I ask, just going back a bit, you were saying, okay, men are lustful, they get into these temporary relationships, a child comes from that.
Yeah.
They don't know the woman, but why is not wanting to make a commitment to a woman not separated from not wanting to make a commitment to the child? Like, can't we develop a culture where, like, parents have to look after their children even if they're not in a committed relationship with the partner? Like, is it acceptable that a man walks away simply because he wasn't dating the woman? Like, how do you change this culture that men at least take responsibility for their children as a starting point?
That's a good question.
Because it's not one and the same. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the child is not the mother, the child is not the father, the
Yeah.
child is this unique, individual, perfect expression of God. So why in this culture, even if you are not romantic with the mother, can't you still step in and be a father to the child?
I think many
Or
of
why
this,
isn't it encouraged? Obviously it's allowed, but why
Yeah.
why doesn't that happen at such high levels?
it's not even allowed. It is something that we have not really taken much keen interest in managing. So you find that the men have an easier way out.
Yeah.
They just knock up a woman and run away.
Yeah.
And there is no tracing, there is no follow-up.
Yeah, so men are really doing more damage to society than
Yeah,
women in
yeah,
that sense,
yeah, they
because
are,
not
they
only
are.
are they damaging the woman in that act of abandonment, but
Yeah.
they're damaging their child,
Yeah.
the one person that morally and spiritually they do have an obligation to as a co-creator.
Like,
You know? I mean,
I like to say there is usually a cycle.
yeah,
Good times create weak men.
is
Weak men create tough times.
Mm-hmm.
Tough times create strong men.
yeah.
Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men.
I love that, and I've heard it so many times, and I always screw it up.
Yeah.
So I never actually say it, but no,
Okay.
I totally agree with those
Yeah,
sentiments.
be-
I always
because-
get the order confused.
Yeah, because you see, when you have many men want, they want just to enjoy the benefits of a relationship
Yeah.
without the responsibility in the
Yeah.
relationship. So it's an issue of responsibility.
Totally.
So many men don't want to be responsible, and that's why we keep telling men that a masculine man is a responsible man.
Exactly.
He's a man who, even if you went somewhere and maybe you got a lady pregnant, you would, as a masculine man, you would take responsibility,
Yeah.
because that is not what we are seeing in our society.
No.
So many people would do that. Maybe in campus, you get a lady pregnant and you're just clearing campus, you run away
Yeah.
and forget about them. So that child is left raised
Yeah.
by the woman
Yeah.
and raised without a father figure.
Yeah.
And it's a dangerous place for
Yeah.
our country.
And there's a co-responsibility there too, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you're a woman and you're with a man who you know has abandoned his child, you're not incentivizing him to step into responsibility and masculinity. If you're
Yes.
still rewarding him in some form,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
in whatever that dynamic is, like
Yeah.
there needs to be some incentive structures put in place where we actually have shame around abandoning children.
Yeah.
That should be something incredibly shameful in every culture.
Yeah.
The only exception to that rule should be if that individual has so much pain or trauma or darkness or they've got explosive anger or they're incredibly violent, it's good then that they step away from that family unit and seek help and seek to heal those aspects of themselves. But to the extent that I just want to step away because I don't want responsibility. It's too much. That needs to be shamed somehow and created as a taboo.
And
Just like drug use is,
Yeah.
just like so many other things. Your culture has a good way of shaming people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be more applied to fathers that abandon their.
And I think that
Because then mothers also have to give up the sorry to go.
Yeah.
Then mothers have to give up the children because they can't afford to raise the child on their own. They need to work. They end up sending the children off into the village and to be raised by the grandparents. Which, again, maybe that's not a bad thing. I think grandparents are great mentors of children, but it's tragic for the mother.
It is.
Who just
it is.
desperately would have hoped that man would have provided. So there's no like child support laws in Kenya, right? Because in Australia, if you get a woman pregnant and she hopefully brings the baby to term, you've got financial responsibilities as a man. Even if you step away, the government will step in and say, oh no, you created that life, so you've got to pay a percentage of your income as child support. That doesn't happen here, I guess.
It does,
Okay.
but the structures are not so strong in enforcing it. It does apply because those guys that were legally, we have a lot of come we stay marriages.
What's
where
that?
Guys, that is, a lady just comes to my house and we live together as husband and wife, never making that commitment official.
Oh, okay, yes.
So there's a lot of
what
that.
did you call it?
Come we stay.
Come we stay. Okay, come we stay. Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
So there's a lot of that.
Sure.
So you see,
I think there's a lot of that in our country too.
So
the
you
West.
see, even that is enforceable. So there are I've not seen such strong laws that enforce the responsibility, especially of a child, to such an individual.
Yeah.
So you find that it is very easy to opt out of an obligation here in Kenya.
Yeah.
Those that get into the system and are followed by the system, they do pay child support.
Yes.
And it's enforceable. I'm saying this because I have a friend who went to prison because he was not paying child support.
And he was economically able to, presumably.
Yes.
Because I guess some broke people can't pay child support.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to almost be a certain economic level.
He was economically able.
Yeah.
But our laws don't really...
And he was your friend, did you say?
Yeah, he is my
Okay.
friend.
So, I mean, look, this is an example,
Yes.
right? Of you've got all these moral values,
Yeah.
but you yourself are not socially excluding
Yes.
people. And obviously you're a Christian, so there's another part of it, which is judge
And
not,
actually,
love
let me-
everyone. But, to what extent by accepting that behavior in our friendships and at least not calling it out, not to say not to be their friends, but are we not, making their choices much more socially permissible?
Why? What happened? And by the way, if I was to tell you a little bit about how we started this podcast,
Yeah.
part of it was during COVID.
Okay.
During COVID period, I witnessed 5 of my friends getting divorced.
Wow.
3 of them were pastors, and it was nasty divorces. It was extremely nasty, and so that was the birth of this podcast because I know I have been in 3 out of 5 of their weddings.
Yeah.
And I knew how much they loved each other.
Okay.
And there was no doubt in my mind how these people actually loved each other.
Yeah.
So when they were separating or getting divorced, it was very ugly and messy.
Yeah. Okay.
And looking at both parties, the man and the woman in this particular divorce, I left questioning myself whether at one point in time these guys ever loved each other.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that?
It was so bad to the point of I'm telling you, they're dragging each other in prison.
Yeah.
My friend was in prison,
Yeah.
taken by the lady.
Yeah. Wow.
And these are guys I sat up close and observed. So that made me very curious. And I went to study. And I went to study books to try and find out why. What is it? Is it that these guys are evil? Is it that, what really happened? Because when you ask them the question of why they are separating, you don't see anything that major that would cause such a messy separation.
Yeah.
So I started reading. And when I started reading, I interacted with human nature, what women respond to, what men respond to in relationships, how a man should be, how a woman should be in a relationship. And I started seeing why.
Okay.
I started seeing the why.
Yeah.
It was not evilness in the man or the woman. It was generally these two people didn't understand what they were looking for in the relationship. Because I thought that what a woman is looking for in a relationship is very different from what a man is looking for. Like, for example, I may be putting it very loosely. Women prioritize their survival.
Right.
And by survival, I don't mean materialism.
Yeah.
I just mean for a woman, the questions that would be ringing in her mind is, in this relationship, am I provided for? Do I have that security, even in terms of protection? And she could be a woman who has her own money. She still wants a man who will be able to protect them.
Yeah.
So I saw that generally it is the fault of the man if he lets himself lose.
Yeah.
If he starts getting fat, if he starts getting out of shape, it is his fault.
Yeah.
Because what this woman is attracted to is that security that is provided. And part of it, I know the outside look is just plastic security and it's just an outlook, but it speaks volume to the ability of this man to protect.
Yeah, and it's biological. I mean, we all come from hunters and gatherers,
Yes.
you know. We have that, you know, you want to know that your partner can protect you.
Yes.
In a situation, if your life is, you know, you want him to know he can move quickly to
Yes.
step in front of you in case there's danger. So I think that makes sense biologically
And
as
before
well.
I lose that thought, I also discovered something, and I would wish you would comment about it.
Yeah, please.
That men love idealistically, women love realistically.
Yeah,
I have
interesting.
seen that.
Can you give me an example?
Yes.
Yeah.
For example, especially in church, the men believe so much in that vow. Here in Kenya,
Yep.
in that vow. So I know many of my friends believe that their wife or their woman will stick with them just because she made a vow.
Yes.
So they expect her to stay truth to this vow.
Yeah.
Whereas the woman knows that this man is going to protect me, is the anchor upon which I cling on to. So I find the men getting very comfortable in marriage and they stop trying. They stop trying to be better versions of themselves. They become very mellow. They become very laid back. And what that has done consequently is that these women have grown in, they have lost their attraction, or their attraction has started fading towards this man.
Yeah.
And you find they end up divorcing them.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
Well, look, I think there's something inherent in the nature of men that we are hunters. We are in pursuit of something. But often once we've captured a woman, we turn our gaze to the next conquest. Okay, now I want to get promoted at work. Now I want to do this and that. So we almost take that relationship for granted. So I think that could also be what you're describing a bit, which is his goal was the marriage. His goal was the vow. Now he's got the vow. He's redirecting, you know, his energies. Whereas perhaps in some of these cases, the woman's goal was the marriage.
Yes.
And now that was only one of his several goals.
Yeah.
And now it's slipping apart, or her needs are not being met. So yeah, I think expectations. I mean, it's a big thing in everything, right?
So the realities I've seen in men, and this could be a cultural issue, but I've also seen some videos of other places where this also happens.
Yeah.
You find, let's say, a typical family. A man has married a woman. The man is doing well. They're both very well financially.
Yeah.
And the man loses his job. So when the man loses his job, the woman is still earning.
Yeah.
The man goes home and becomes a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And as the woman keeps providing, this is what happens here in Kenya most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Majority of the time.
Yeah.
The woman ends up leaving the man.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's
it happens.
common in many places.
I have talked to so many people who that happens.
Yeah. I think.
So for that is why I make the argument of value.
Yeah.
That's why I make the argument on value. And I say...
I think women are searching value more
Yes.
in a materialistic sense.
Yeah.
More than men here.
Yes.
You know, so if you're a man that's not meeting someone's needs and she originally coupled up with you so those needs were met, I
Yeah.
mean, from her perspective, that's a breach of contract.
Yeah.
You know, not that that's nice, but that, you know, men have to realize that here.
Yeah.
Like if she doesn't love you for your character and for your soul and for your curiosity or the philosophical, intellectual contribution you bring, she loves you for what you financially bring mainly. If you stop providing that, then
The marriage ends.
yeah.
And that is a sad reality here in Kenya.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's a sad reality, but men know that, you know, men have to accept that too, right? Like before we commit to someone in marriage, we should really seek to know their character fully, their shadows, their traumas, their, you know, their superficialities, their depth. So if a man doesn't see that coming, my question to him would be, how well did you know her?
Yeah, you didn't
Because
know her
if you
that
if
well.
you know if you didn't know her that well, or if
Yeah.
maybe someone really doesn't see it coming, and then that's heartbreaking. But I think men also need to pay more attention to, like, who is this person they're dating, and really get to know them beyond, does she cook for me? Does she meet my intimacy needs? You know, whatever shallow things exist there.
And actually, 70% of the men don't see it coming. They get hit hard. Like I'm telling you, my
Yeah.
friends, they were
Yeah.
through very, very. They were
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? I mean, it's
I once went to a friend of mine and I just sat next to him and didn't say a thing.
yeah,
Like I sat with him for hours because he was in so much agony. He was in so much pain. The wife had left. She had taken everything from the house.
Yeah.
He just found an empty house, a 4-bedroom house that is empty. And he knew it was over.
wow.
And
He didn't see it coming.
he did not see it coming.
And did he have children?
Yes.
And they were gone.
The 37-year marriage. 27-year marriage.
And he was like a faithful man. He was.
Yes.
Oh,
And
damn.
And that's what sent me to trying to find out why. So I found that from our conversation, the men get very comfortable. They
Yeah,
stop trying
yeah.
as soon as they bag the woman.
Who do you think is more accepting of infidelity in Kenya? Is it? I mean, I presume it's the woman who's more accepting. If there's a
Yes.
marriage,
Yeah.
the women are more accepting of the men's infidelity.
Yeah.
Whereas in Kenya, for example, if a man loves his wife and he finds out there's been infidelity, will he leave her usually? Like, is that such a betrayal of the marriage contract? Whereas a woman finds out the man has.
Now, men never recover from.
Yeah, our
being
egos are
cheated
crushed.
on.
Yeah, I know, it's true. It's
They never
definitely
really.
true.
They never really recover.
Yeah.
What I have noted is they are not very forgiving
Yeah.
of infidelity.
Yeah.
But women are more forgiving.
Yeah.
Women are more,
Women are
especially
women are definitely
and
more
it
forgiving.
is pegged on the economic value of this man, who he is generally in the
Okay.
society. Because if he is just your normal, what they call average Joe, if he's just your average Joe,
Yeah.
the woman will leave him.
You don't think it's because women are more empathetic
Yes.
in general, and they're
Yeah.
more emotionally understanding in general as
Yes.
well, and they're less rigid?
Yes.
So perhaps there's just an inherent part of their nature as well. You know, I mean, women are mothers, right? Mothers are the most beautiful,
Yeah.
empathetic creatures on the planet. So there must just be a part of them as well. Not that they have to forgive, but I think at least they can understand
Yeah.
better than
Better
men, who
than
it just
men.
comes as a shock to us.
Men
'Cause
is
you
like
know,
ego damage.
it's an ego, and we're more egoic as well. You know, I mean, do you distinct that we have more than the ego, that we have a soul and we have an ego, and that they're competing forces within ourselves, and in any given moment we can give in to the soul urge or the ego urge? Like, that's how I often understand it. Like, you know, someone stops you on the street and they ask you for money, right? The soul, that Christian part of yourself, knows that when I help another, I'm actually helping myself, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
The ego says, this is my last 1K,
Yeah.
and I wanted to go buy, like, so there's always that internal struggle. So yes, men have bigger egos, but I don't necessarily think we can't use that as a justification.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
not a justification.
You know, it's because it's part of our human nature, but it's just one part of our human nature. We also have the ability to step back and say, did I mistreat her? Did something else happen that might have caused her to look outside the marriage for love or affection or I just think wherever possible we need to, like, move towards our inner soul, inner self-reflection.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard.
Oh, that's very interesting. And
Yeah.
I mean, that has been a very good conversation.
Yeah, it's been good.
Man,
I've enjoyed
I've
it.
really gotten your perspective on so many things, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to listen, and it's interesting to enjoy this just share this conversation.
Yeah, it's
one
been
with
great. I
another.
hope we do another one in the
I
future.
want us to do another
Yeah, I feel
one.
like we just go. Yeah, it's great when you meet someone that you, because this is often. I mean, I love books like you, Silas. So
yeah.
I love books, and and people say, why do you love books so much? And often I say, look, I love people as well, but I
Yes.
learn so much more from a book
Yes.
than I do from most
From
people.
most
And
people,
as
yeah.
someone who is like incredibly curious and an incredible truth seeker,
Yeah.
that's why I love books.
Yeah.
But yeah, meeting people like you where I can have these fantastic hour-long conversations, it really fills my soul. So thank you.
And
Thank you for
actually,
that, you know?
that's the route this podcast is following. I want to have these conversations. I want to have these conversations with anyone and anybody.
Yeah.
I want to have an atheist sit there
Yeah.
and listen and ask them those questions.
Well, come to Australia, you'll find a lot of atheists. You know.
I want
Yeah.
to host a Muslim
Yeah.
and ask him about Islam. I want to host a Hindu.
Yeah.
I want to have this conversation so that
Right.
in Christianity we have apologetics, and apologetics is knowing what you believe,
Yeah.
telling it to the people in a respectful and a winsome way.
Yeah.
So knowing what you believe, why you believe it, and communicating it.
Yeah.
So it's not that if you were to ask most Kenyans why are you Christian, it's because of a Christian name,
Yeah.
not that we follow the Bible.
No.
We are just Christians
Yeah.
because we were born in a Christian family.
Right. If you ask most Kenyans or most Christians,
Yeah.
which of Christ's virtues are you going to work on this year of embodying the most?
Yeah.
Like it's not something they've turned their mind to. Well,
Exactly.
I am a Christian. I go to church. Yeah.
We are highly religious, but we are not highly biblical
Yes.
in our religion.
But-
So I would like
yeah.
to sit down with someone who is a Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
and when they're talking about Islam, and I get to understand what the Muslims believe and why
Yeah.
they believe what they believe, then even if I am talking to a Muslim about
Yeah.
religion, I am not coming from a place of ignorance, because we
No.
have very many ignorant
Yeah.
Christians who are preaching the gospel.
Yeah,
But they
of
are
course.
preaching
Yeah,
it from
sure.
ignorance.
Well, I'd like
Let's
to
say
you're a
they-
pastor, right? I'd like to
Yeah.
see you sit down with an imam, someone who knows the scripture as well as you,
Yeah.
of their own text. That'd be a good conversation.
Yes, if you go to a country like China where they're highly Buddhist, as a Christian, how
Well,
would
they're also highly non-religious because of the
No-
communist
yes.
regime. You know, it really tried to rip apart a lot of those ancient Confucian cultural traditions.
Yeah.
You
How
know?
would you approach a Buddhist and have a meaningful conversation about religion with them if you don't understand Buddhism?
Yeah,
You must understand some level of it.
Yeah.
Or if you must gather all the information, most of the information you can get about Buddhism,
Yeah.
to understand how to reach out to those people.
yeah,
Because many of the Christians are just like, I am a Christian, I was born in a Christian family, I don't care what they teach.
Yeah.
I am just a Christian. And we have Christian names.
yeah, yeah.
So if
But
somebody...
your name's not a Christian name, huh?
Yeah.
Or it is a Christian name?
I think...
What's the heritage of your name?
Silas.
Silas.
I don't know.
Yeah,
My
no,
mom just
it's a
gave
cool
me.
name. Yeah,
My mom just gave me.
I can't think of like the genealogy of where it comes from.
No, it has not... I
Yeah.
don't think it has anything behind it.
Okay.
It's just a name you find, it's a cool name, and
Yeah.
let's name him like this.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. For me, I don't mind when I'm sitting with people who have divergent views from what I have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't force my beliefs dogmatically to people. I always want to understand why they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And that curiosity has made me more empathetic with human beings. It's made me accommodative to them, that I can, like I've told you, I have a friend who's an atheist, by the way.
Yeah.
I have an atheist friend.
I love that that's a big thing for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Is that a
because
big thing for you? Is that a big thing because your
the
your
people who are
background
going
in the
to watch
church?
this, let me guarantee
Okay,
you,
yeah.
the people who are going to watch this,
Yeah.
some of them are going to be like, oh, he has an atheist friend.
And is the controversy the friendship? Because presumably you know atheists.
Yeah.
Is the controversy that you're friends, or where's the controversy on that?
The controversy is how would he?
Or how could he be an atheist? Or how would
Yeah.
you be friends
How
with an
could-
atheist? Yes.
And you see that is more judgmental than it
Yeah.
is. It is you
Yeah.
when you just ask that question is
Yeah.
a guilt trip.
But I suppose some atheists can live more aligned to Christ's message than some Christians, right?
Yes.
And as a Christian, we should look to people who seek to mirror the acts of Christ as opposed to repeat the theology.
and you see that's why this section exists. I want like there's a person I've hosted here, some, for lack of a better way to put it, controversial views.
Yeah.
And I want to put them out there.
Yeah.
I want to put them out there because, I mean, if you know exactly, if you are a Christian,
Yeah.
and you know exactly what you believe, then you won't get offended that other people believe a different thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't offend you. It intrigues you. It makes you want. It makes you see where they are wrong if you presume that
Yeah.
they are wrong, and it sees you. It makes you see where you can have a meaningful conversation with them.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be that kind of Christian who is dismissive.
No.
Yeah, and I don't want this podcast to be that podcast that is dismissive of
Yeah.
people, because many people you meet, you tell them, why do you not, for lack of a better way to put it, like Muslims? They don't know why.
Yeah.
They don't even know what Islam is. They
No.
don't know what they believe.
Yeah.
They just know that Muslims are not good people, which is not a very good position to be
No,
in.
of course not.
It's a very dismissive position.
Because even as a Christian, you have to accept every Muslim was still created by your version of God.
Yeah. And,
You
and
know,
you see,
and we're born into these religions and these cultures, and often that's why I think it's really important to debate ideas with people, but not be critical of them as people, because their views are often not originally their own and have been passed to them. So
yeah.
yeah,
That is very interesting, and you can see we're still going.
Yeah, sorry.
It's very interesting, and
Yeah.
thank you, Shay, for
No worries,
taking
brother.
time to be here.
Very fun. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Every time you're in Kenya, just hit
Sounds
me up.
good.
Hit me up every time you're in Kenya.
I will,
and
brother.
let's talk.
We're friends now, so
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing your most controversial opinions next time. As
I'll
a man
bring
who
them.
courts bring him,
I'll
bring
bring
him
them.
and the receipts, and we'll discuss them.
Let's do a podcast on the
Yeah, exactly. Most controversial views.
Views, yes.
What's your? Yeah, that's a good question to ask people too. Like, what is your most controversial view? Because that's
Exactly.
the real edge of free. That's where the edges of free speech
Yes.
and self-confidence exist.
Yes.
Because if we're not willing to articulate what we find controversial, we're not
Yeah.
really being entirely authentic.
We'll do that's the next podcast you're doing.
Next time.
So thank you guys
Okay.
for joining us. If you've liked this conversation, I'd like to encourage you to like, share, subscribe, tell people about what we are doing here. I always like to say that if you come to this podcast, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about different topics. You're going to see some amazing people come here, share their views, and we will disagree on the podcast. We will agree to disagree, and that is what makes a good conversation. So we would like to just encourage you to tell people about what we are doing. Tell them that is a podcast that you'll go and learn a lot about books, and we'll have to do, because you've told me you like books. I'll look for a book that we've both read, and then we can come and dissect it here.
Fantastic.
It will be very interesting.
Yep.
So thank you so much, and God bless. Peace.
Okay, God bless. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you can share. Are you? No.
Yeah. So yeah, I can share it to you anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, they can
Yes.
follow me on
Okay.
socials.
Okay.
I've got like a more public one that they
Okay.
can follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can share with me, and then I'll put it on the screen.
Yeah, perfect.
as
Yeah,
the
exactly.
episode is going on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Bye.